Well, thank you everyone for coming.
I'm less than 10.
My name is Rod Smola, and I am the president of Vermont Law and Graduate School, and along with my two colleagues, the dean of the law school, Beth McCormick, and the dean of the graduate school, Dan Bromberg, we're going to be giving you an update on the state of the school. The good news is that the state of the school is strong and getting stronger. We have made the transition from a school that is under severe stress to a school that's achieved stability. And over the course, and that will always be here. Over the course of that's good too. Over the course of, and I say here in South Royalton, not just here on the face of the earth, all right? Over the course of the next 3 years, our vision is to enter the second stage of this transition, where we go from mere stability, merely holding on and surviving, to an epoch of advancement and enhancement. So I want to describe that for you in a bit. I first want to talk about how the next several years will involve advancement and enhancement in what I'll call our infrastructure. And what I mean by that is not just physical. I mean, for example, being able to raise the salaries and benefits of our employees, our faculty members, our staff members, our administrators, to levels that are commensurate with the market and treating them with the dignity they deserve as the people who work so hard here. Attending to the physical plant. You're back here for reunion. It may look beautiful to you, but on close inspection, you'll see things that need attention. Some of them are big, roofs and HVAC systems. Some of them are cosmetic, but that will be an important project which we'll be undertaking over the next several years. If we can, and if it is feasible, investing in student housing here on the campus to help alleviate some of the housing crisis. Adding new tenure-track faculty. We have plans to search for 4 new tenure-track faculty this year. They would be coming a year from now. Adding new contract faculty and administrators and others to help us bolster our programs. Solidifying the overwhelming success we've had in the implementation of our strategic plan in our online programs, including our online JD program, so that those students get the same quality that the students who are here residentially receive. And continuing to roll out all the innovative programs that are part of the graduate school. You'll be hearing from Beth McCormick and Dan Bromberg in a great deal more detail on these matters, but that is the vision as we move from hanging on to being able to judiciously reinvest in quality and improvement. There's also an element of what I'll call values investment. We need to be sure that we maintain our place as one of the world leaders on issues concerning climate change and environmental protection. We need to be sure that we continue to hold our place as one of the pioneers and leaders on issues relating to social justice and restorative justice. We need to add programming to some of our terrific programs that are today understaffed. Programs that tend to things such as veterans law and policy, agriculture and food systems, one of our stellar, star, new booming programs, animal rights, and connected to climate change and environmental protection, environmental justice. We have many, many other programs that both give our students the opportunity for experiential learning and serve society. Our legal clinic, our South Royalton Legal Clinic, is a core piece of the infrastructure providing legal services in this state. Our new programs assisting small businesses are similar. And writ large, on a national stage and an international stage, we're as committed as any school in the country to matters relating to social justice. Your support is critical. And I know you come for fun, but I want you to know that without your investment, without your willingness to contribute, we struggle to make this turn, and we struggle to get to the prosperity and the future and the new investment that is so vital if we're going to remain such an important force on the national landscape. I mean your financial support, your moral support, your support in helping us recruit students, your support in helping us get our students jobs, all of those things. We are working on cultivating your support and the support of others. We're working on philanthropy in a way we've never been able to do before as a school because of the new structure of the school. I'm not an academic. I don't deal as an academic dean. We have the two academic leaders of the school. I'm the president, and my job is to go out and be on the road and fundraise and help recruit students and help recruit colleagues to come here and be the external force of the school. School's never had that luxury before. I think I made something like 38 trips in the last year, some close, some to Montpelier or Burlington or New Hampshire, but some to Los Angeles and Florida and Chicago, out and about talking to folks like this, engaging people, some who have connections to the school, some who don't, but can be turned on by our mission. That's enormously important, and in a broader sense, your volunteerism, your willingness to just come to events like this, your willingness to listen, your willingness to spread the word, and your willingness when you're asked to think about an annual donation to do that. This school has always attracted, in a very unusual way, people who come with a sense of idealism and altruism. It's remarkable. I've been at many, many, many universities and schools, and I've loved them all, but I've never met students who come with such passion, such ambition. What we need to be able to do is to hone that and shape that and help that mature so that they develop the judgment, they develop the skills, they develop the competency, they develop the professional personas to go out into the policy arena, to go out into the legal arena, and take that passion that they had, which has now been honed and tempered, and have lives of meaning and lives of consequence for themselves and for society. I can't help but reflect on this weekend as we see the Supreme Court's final decisions of the year, as we saw the drama of the presidential debate, to reflect on how we are of a piece with all that is going on in society and the world. And this is a flexion point. This is a flexion point in our national history and in world history. We have a lot of decisions to make as a society. Will the United States be a country that believes in a kind of transactional isolationism, or instead be a country that believes in alliances and engagement? Will our national policies be heavily influenced by decisions at the federal level, or will our society devolve into 50 different mini-republics with vastly different views on how society should be organized? Will we be a society that draws on administrative expertise, that has some confidence that people who are experts in finance, in the environment, in social services, should guide our decisions? Or will we see the dismantling of the administrative state that began with the New Deal because it is seen as a pejorative, as the deep state? Will we be a society that continues to embrace some sense of a safety net for those who are disadvantaged? Or will we Go back to a period reminiscent of before even the Progressive Era and Teddy Roosevelt, in which free market economics and the survival of the fittest was the watchword. Will we be a society that embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of its manifest meanings, or a society that is hostile to the rights of the LGBTQ community, to things like gender-affirming care? Will we be a society that embraces immigration, embraces the words that appear on the Statue of Liberty, or a society that is hostile to immigration, particularly hostile to people that seek to come here because of persecution or economic disadvantage, and open our doors only to those who we think might in some way help us, often people who are already privileged? Will we be a society respectful of reproductive rights or hostile to them? Will we be a society in which incarceration, often for long and punishing sentences, is the norm and the response to crime? Or a society that embraces more enlightened alternatives, such as restorative justice? Will we be a society that treats climate change with a sense of urgency? Or a society that treats it as either a myth or is insouciant toward it, or at the very best is attacking it with complacency? Now, I don't mean to tell you that it is the role of this school to embrace any one set of these values. It's a free country. We have students that come from all perspectives. We have students that are movement conservatives and progressive liberals. We have faculty members with all perspectives. But I will tell you this for sure. We will have failed in our mission if we don't engage our students in these issues, if we can't continue to attract students who care about these questions and who, caring about them, then, while they are here, become better equipped to engage in the advocacy, in the compromise, in the dialogue, in the innovations that are required for society to reach a positive resolution to these wrenching issues. I'll end by sharing a memory with you. I was a young boy and just beginning to have some awareness of current events in the world. And I listened to what I'm sure was the first speech I'd ever heard by a president. It was John Kennedy's inaugural address, delivered in 1961. And in that address, he most famously said, "Let the word go forth from this time and place that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans." The generation to whom that torch was being passed was the generation of my dad and my mom. My dad, like John Kennedy, fought in World War II in the Pacific in the United States Navy. My mom, like so many, stayed home in Nebraska in factories to make munitions. They were called Rosie the Riveter. That was 6 decades ago. How many generations have we had since? You can name them, I guess. I am the child of that great generation. I am a baby boomer. And then we have Generation Xers, and we have Millennials, and we have Generation Z or Zoomers, and I suppose now Generation Alpha. I don't know that these labels matter so much, and I'm not big on stereotypes of generations any more than I'm big on stereotypes of any kind. But I do know, to quote the words of another baby boomer, Bob Dylan, the times they are a-changing right now. And I don't know how they're going to change. But I do know that for them to change in a positive way, we need a new generation to whom the torch is being passed. And the world needs and the country needs many of those folks to come from this school. to have the access to this school, to have the quality education that this school can give them, and then to go out and do the things that you have been doing and so many others that have graduated from here have been doing for so many years. I'm so proud to now be a part of this, and will enjoy your camaraderie and fun through the rest of the weekend. I hope that you're inspired to participate, to volunteer, and to give. And congratulations on being part of this wonderful institution. And with that, I will invite Dean McCormick to speak next. Thanks, folks.
I am not Dean McCormick.
It turns out not. I got it wrong. I told you they run the show. I just didn't.
I'm going to give the law school overview right now. So my name's Dan Bromberg. Let me grab the clicker here. I will use slides, so hopefully that'll help us follow along. So I'll be brief. I'm gonna give an overview of the graduate school. I'm gonna talk a bit about the development of a new degree that we have, a Master's of Public Policy that we're launching. And I'm gonna talk about some future opportunities that I see that we have. So just to give you a sense, the graduate school was established in 2022 as part of the strategic planning process. The graduate school does a good amount for us. One of the things it does is it allows us to invest in our graduate programming. So I'm not sure how many of you know this, but when you are accredited by the ABA controls, or at least suggests, where you should be spending your dollars in relation to the type of programming that you're giving. And if you invest too heavily outside of your JD, right, they're going to make comment on that, or they're going to say, you need to pull that back. So strategically, the graduate school allows us to make investments on the graduate side of the shop. So that is one of the aspects of building out a graduate school. Obviously, the other is that we could take advantage of other programming outside of law, and I'll talk about that programming in a second. I came as the inaugural dean pretty much a year ago to the day, right? So I started on July 1 last year. For the first year, we had an interim dean, Jenny Rushlow. And then I started after about 12 years at the University of New Hampshire, where I was running the Carsey School for Public Policy. So this was the policy school at the University of New Hampshire. We had comparable degrees, obviously slightly different at a bigger institution. We did similar stuff, but we did it in a very different way. Coming here was a really welcome opportunity for me. I've been thrilled since I've gotten here, and it's just been a great experience for the year. It's also been quite a learning experience. This is a unique place, as you all know, and it has been pretty wonderful to be welcomed into this community, learn about this community, and help to build and grow this community. Currently, the graduate school has 5 master's degrees. So I'm just sharing these so everyone can kind of see where we're currently at. We have an executive master's in environmental policy. This is a 25-credit program that is primarily meant for mid-career professionals. We have a master's of climate and environmental policy. This is probably the closest to the MCEL or the MELP for those of you that have taken those degrees or were familiar with those degrees. We have a Master's of Energy Regulation and Law that was launched in 2013, and we have many Merle students with us. We have a Master of Restorative Justice, which is based out of our Center for Justice Reform, and we now have this Master's of Public Policy. Just so everyone knows, about 20% of our JD students end up getting a master's degree while they're with us. So those are our joint degree students. So a nice number of our JD students are seeing the benefit of getting both degrees while they're here. And I think all of you could imagine the advantages that provides someone going into the field, whether it be law, advocacy, policy, or what have you. There's a value add to this proposition that we're putting out there. Current state of the graduate school, we have about 150 students across our programs. 70% of our graduate students take classes online. We have 6 online terms, so it's not like a traditional academic semester. We basically break every academic semester into 2. So you might start at the end of August, and then you'd finish October 10th, and then you'd start again a new term. So we do that 6 times throughout the year. So students could run through their courses, typically taking 3 credits at a time or 1 course at a time, and then you could do the math as far as where they would end up after year 1. We have a pretty robust online programming apparatus, much more so than I think anyone would anticipate at an institution of our size. We stand up a minimum of 20 courses per term. So every 6 weeks, we're standing up a minimum of 20 new courses, and that's just on the graduate side of the shop. That doesn't mean they're exclusive to graduate students. Our law students take them as well. But we also do add to that maybe 5 to 10 JD-specific courses that are stood up online as well. So our online team is doing tremendous work, and there's a lot that goes into that operation. On average, our online students are taking about 12 credits per year. So that means they're not taking a course every single one of those terms. Most of our online students are mid-career professionals. Most of them are working, full or part-time, coming to school part-time, and kind of picking and choosing as they make their way through our programming. So that's the general overview of where we're currently at. And the Q&A, I'm happy to go into more details and answer any questions that you all have. I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the Masters of Public Policy, as that's the new degree that we built out during my first year and will launch in the fall. So an MPP degree, for those of you that do not know, is an interdisciplinary degree. It's designed to provide students the tools to understand and solve complex issues related to public policy. Obviously, there's a huge intersection with law when we're talking about public policy. These were the 5 guiding principles that we were thinking about as building out this policy degree. First, we wanted to align the curriculum with the mission and values of Vermont Law and Graduate School, right? So let's not stray too far from what we say we're doing and what our goals are to do. Let's leverage our current expertise and course offerings in environmental policy, law, criminal justice, and restorative justice. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel at this point. We're doing certain things extremely well. Let's use those expertise and continue to do those things well. Let's make a distinct contribution to the marketplace of professional degrees in the public policy and public affairs space. Center experiential learning in our curriculum. So make this a pragmatic degree where our students are getting that experience while they're with us. Right? Let's not wait till they graduate to give them the experience they need. Let's let them do it while they're here, just as all of our clinics do on the JD side. We should be doing that on the graduate side as well. And then lastly, we wanted to align our curriculum with our accrediting body in public policy, which is NASPA. So while we will not be accredited, you need to be a program for a minimum of 3 years. The thought was, in building this out, we need to start thinking 3 to 5 years out, and we should be aligning with what this accrediting body is going to want us to do. Why did we move into this space? There are nearly 30,000 applications in the public affairs space every year. To give you some sort of benchmark, on the law side, there are about 60,000 applications. So not quite as large as the law side, but still a very sizable space where there's a lot of opportunity to get students. Programs have a 77% acceptance rate, 65% yield rate, meaning they're getting about 65% of the students that apply. Average GPA is a 3.0, 45% of the students graduate in 2 years. Most are employed in government or the nonprofit sector. And you could really say that about most of the students at VLGS as well in general. So it really does align with what we're doing. A Master's of Public Policy is an interdisciplinary degree. We're able to leverage our expertise in animal protection policy, clean energy, food and agriculture law and policy, justice reform. We're able to focus on strategic communication and advocacy alongside lobbying, which are assets that we have that differentiate us from most MPP programs. Most MPP programs focus on policy analysis. There is a huge need to train students in strategic communication, advocacy, and lobbying. And we have that skill set already in-house. So building that out and continuing to invest in that side of the shop is something that we think will be viable. And we have an eye towards market and career advancement. I think this is going to position us differently. An MPP is a known credential, especially in the government and nonprofit space. So we could leverage all of those expertise that we have and deliver a known degree to the market. We often hear students say, I love my MELP or I love my MERL, but I have to explain what it is when someone asks. In this case, you don't necessarily have to explain what a Master's of Public Policy is. People will know. That doesn't change the substance of what we're offering. We still will be offering the same substance, the same area foci, so we'll be able to just build on that and double down on all of those things. Future opportunities. So this is my last slide, so I'll just touch on this briefly, and I'm happy to answer more questions as we move forward. There are additional credentialing opportunities. I don't know how many of you are on LinkedIn, but often you'll see someone say, I have a new skill set or I have a new badge. These are called digital badges. These are credentials that are in anything from management to leadership to here we'll be doing them in restorative justice. We'll be doing them in environmental policy. And we'll be creating these opportunities for people to know us through that professional credentialing space. Graduate certificates. We currently have one professional certificate in restorative justice. Graduate certificates are a nice way to get people into the door without getting a full master's degree, but still offering them some graduate credit and a credential. Executive training. There are loads of organizations we work with regularly. We're gonna build that out more systematically and start thinking about strategic partnerships and how do we partner with organizations that need the expertise that we have. How do we work with their employees? How do we generate revenue from those relationships? And all of those things. We're going to start thinking more about our online student experience. We have this great opportunity with the online hybrid JD, which Dean McCormick will speak about, to really think about how we're delivering online education differently. How are we doing this well so it's just not an afterthought, we're just popping a course online? How are we supporting our students? And then lastly, we have this great opportunity, experiential learning. Our clinics are, internationally known. In the law side of the shop, there is no reason why we shouldn't be doing the same thing, as I mentioned earlier, on the graduate side. And I do think that's a differentiator in our space. I will stop there. I will be happy to take questions after Dean McCormick gives her presentation, and I will turn it over to you.
Good morning. A special good morning to the class of 1999, who I hear was late night at Crossroads last night. I'm Beth McCormick. I'm the Dean of Vermont Law School here at Vermont Law and Graduate School, and I am halfway through my third year as serving as the Dean of the Law School and about to start my 14th year as a faculty member here at Vermont Law and Graduate School. Today, I'm going to talk about a couple of issues in the law school. I'm going to talk about bar passage, job placement. I'm going to tell you about some curricular changes we made this year. I'm going to give you an update on the online hybrid JD. I want to tell you about our new interim ELC director, and then end with a few scenes from campus over the last semester. The first thing I want to talk about is bar passage, and as many of you know, this has been an area of concern for us over the last few years. The ABA measures bar passage success with what they call ultimate bar passage. So they measure 2 years, 2 calendar years from a student's graduation date and require that that number be above 75%. For most students, 2 years means 4 opportunities to take and pass the bar exam. However, if a student took it once in that 2-year period and then didn't take it again, maybe they took it the 5th opportunity, then they would count as a fail for ultimate bar passage rate as measured by the ABA. In 2019, our ultimate bar passage rate was 67.2%, so below that 75% required threshold. At that time, we implemented a number of actions to improve our overall school bar passage rate. The thing with anything that you do for bar passage, though, is you often don't see the results for 3 or more years. If you make a curricular change for the first years, it's another 5 years before you measure ultimate bar passage results for that group. So it has taken some time for us to see some improvement, but we are seeing that improvement. Most recently, the class of 2023's ultimate bar passage is 72.8%, but those students have 2 more opportunities to take and pass the exam to be counted in that number. So it is very likely that we will meet and exceed that 75% requirement. We were able to meet that 75% requirement for 2020, 2021, and 2022, but as you can see, just by a hair. So we are continuing to really work on our bar passage. One of the main things that we've done to improve is we partnered with Barbary a couple years ago, and now our students, as part of their tuition, receive the Barbary Bar Preparation class. Also, students receive support throughout their entire 3 years here, including a fundamentals class that our incoming 1Ls take, and then they get access to study materials, practice multiple choice questions, lectures throughout their time here. Barbary also does a data analysis project for us that helps us isolate the variables that are most likely to lead to bar success. So that's one of the main things we've done to improve. We've also made changes at the admissions level, at the curricular level, at the academic regulations level, and all of these things, I think, are beginning to pay off. You can see how closely bar passage is related to job placement. So with that class of 2023's high first-time bar passage rate, we had 80% job placement for that class, and I want to talk a little bit more about our job placement numbers right now. So our ABA reported job placement for the class of 2023 was 80%, up 11% over the year before. We have 25% of those students working at law firms, 17% doing energy or environmental related work, 5% doing immigration work, and our students are working in 30 different states. Some notable jobs from the class of 2024 are the GOJ Honors Program, Environmental and Natural Resources Division, the class of 2023. Many students working at EPA, students working at the Department of Energy, American Clean Power Association, and this year we've employed 7 prosecutors and 9 public defenders. So our job placement numbers are improving as well. The ABA has certain restrictions on how we report bar passage, and when we use their formula, it's 80%. When we use a little bit of a broader formula that counts students for which a JD is not required, then that number rises to 87%. So I hope that we continue to see improvements on this front. One interesting thing, and this slide might be difficult for you to see, is that we are ranked in the top 10 for placement in state court clerkships. This slide is a Law 360 survey that shows us at 27% of being in the top 5 of all American law schools for placement in state court clerkships. So that's a real credit to our Career Services Department, has been working on increasing that number, because often after serving as a state court clerk, our students are well positioned to get other types of jobs after that. So that's something that we have been really proud of. I want to talk to you about a few curricular changes that are pretty big. The first is that we have added a 1-credit embedded racism in the law requirement the spring of our first year for all of our 1L students. The faculty, this was actually a student-led initiative a couple of years ago that the faculty voted on this year and decided to implement. We've also reduced the credits in the first year, starting next year, from 32 credits, which many of you may have had, to 27 credits. So that is a big change, but one that we thought made a lot of sense, because it really didn't make sense that the highest credit load that a student takes is in the first year when they are least experienced with the law, although that's the way it's done at most law schools. So we have changed that. We've moved constitutional law to the second year to allow students to take a shorter course load or a reduced course load in the first year. We have also decided, or we're considering, very close to adding a 1-credit AI requirement for our 1Ls in the spring semester. So that would actually bring us to 28 credits. But we have realized that any successful lawyer needs to be familiar with how to use AI in the legal practice ethically and effectively. So we are working right now on adding that 1-credit requirement for the spring semester. I want to spend a few minutes talking about our online hybrid JD program, which is a program that I am enormously proud of. This program is a fully online JD, fully accredited by the ABA, that allows our students to take the bar in every jurisdiction, except they have to petition to take it in New York. And we are one of only about 17 ABA-accredited, fully online JD programs in the country. This is our first part-time program as well. So our students in this program work full-time. Many of them are full-time parents. Many of them are veterans' families, spouses of active duty veterans, or perhaps veterans themselves. And they take between 8 and 10 credits per semester over 3.5 years, including summers. So it ends up being 10 semesters, including summers. These students take a mix of synchronous classes, which are online at the same time, sort of like you may have taken a class during the pandemic, or asynchronous classes, which are self-paced, and students don't need to be online at any particular time. So it's a mix of synchronous and asynchronous. And for the most part, we have those bar classes as the synchronous ones so that the faculty has direct oversight over those really key subjects. Our students in this program come to Vermont 3 times over the 3.5 years for short 4-day residencies. And during those residencies, we do things like career networking. Sometimes they take classes for credit. We give them a chance to get to know in person their faculty and each other. Their oral argument for appellate advocacy will be at one of the residencies. And we are about to recruit or about to start our 3rd class in this program. We decided to offer this program following the pandemic and our success teaching virtually, and also building on our long-term expertise in online education. As many of you know, we were one of the first schools to have a fully online master's degree. So we have all of our online operations in-house, and it made sense for us to try to offer this program. And fortunately, the ABA agreed to let us offer this program. The growth has been tremendous. This slide shows you that growth. Our first entering class, who will graduate in 2025, had 18 students. Right now, we have 96 students in the program, 78 that started this year, plus the 18. Next year at this time, we expect to have 196 students in this program. And then that last 10th semester, when the incoming or the class of 2025 is still here, we should have 296 students in this program. So it has been tremendous growth, of which we have devoted tremendous resources to as well to make the program successful. I have a few photos from the most recent residency where the students came to campus just a couple weeks ago in June. It was a mix of activities in Burlington and South Royalton. The students took a field trip. I should say that there are specialties in the online hybrid JD. So our students can pursue a track in environmental law, energy law, animal law, food and agriculture law, or restorative justice, or they can take a general practice track, which many students do as well. So some of these students were in South Royalton taking classes in the weekend intensives in the summer program. Some of these students were in Burlington taking classes for credit. Some of these students went to a farm as a field trip as part of the food and agriculture track. But what I wanted you to know was that the students really got to come to campus, got to go to the bookstore, got to meet our residential students, got to meet some of our residential faculty, and take part in our summer program. And of course, we even took them to Crossroads as well so they could get the full residential experience. The photo all the way on the right shows our online hybrid JD students really interacting with our residential students. They were in one of the summer intensive classes together, made connections, exchanged numbers. I think we'll be friends and colleagues from here on. And it's really exactly what we had imagined when we created this program. So it's been wonderful to see it play out. Here are some photos of the students in Burlington, meeting Dean Jefferson. We had a night of axe throwing at Burley Axe, and then some classes and other activities at our Burlington office space. So it has really been a tremendous program. You might be wondering, are you taking people from the residential program and putting them in this program? And I think the answer is no. Perhaps at the margins we are, but generally this class profile is much different than our residential class profile. The average age is 36, about 10 years older than our residential profile. And as I said, many of these students, or many of the online hybrid JD students, work full-time. So it is not the same type of student that's choosing the residential experience. So I believe that this program, for the most part, is adding students that would not have come to our residential program anyway. I want to also tell you and introduce you, at least virtually, to Christophe Crochet. He is going to be our interim ELC director starting tomorrow, July 1st. As many of you know, the longtime leader of the Environmental Law Center, Jenny Rushlow, is stepping down. She's going to stay on the faculty, not to worry, but after a semester of family leave, she'll come back to the faculty. And in the meantime, Christoph will serve as our interim ELC director. He has been at the school for 2 years already. He's the director of the Environmental Advocacy Center. He's litigated environmental cases for nearly 2 decades. Before that, before he joined the faculty here, he serves as the Deputy Chief of the Energy and Environmental Bureau and Assistant Attorney General at the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office. Prior to that, he served as the Chief of the Environmental Protection Division at the AG's office. He served as a Senior Attorney at Conservation Law Foundation and an Associate in the Energy and Environmental Land Use Practice at Goodwin Procter. He received his JD from Harvard Law School. So we're thrilled that he is serving as the interim ELC director for this year while we launch a national search for new leadership in the ELC. And finally, I'm going to close with some scenes from some pictures from campus over the last semester or so. You can see here, Senator Leahy came to campus for the dedication of the building in his name, had a chance to meet with a lot of students. You can see a picture of that there. You can also see a picture of our world-famous Student Appreciation Days, where the faculty and staff cook for and serve students after their first exam, a long-time tradition here. You can see a photo of that. As well, you can see the VLS hockey team. I think they lost the championship, but just maybe we're in the finals. I'm not sure exactly about that. And then our longtime tradition of the Women's Law Group auction, which benefits Safeline. This year it was Barbie themed, and you can see a few photos there. And yes, I am wearing roller skates in that picture. Finally, one of our newest events that I know will be a long-time tradition is our new this year Taste of Culture event, which gave students a chance to perform, provide food, or other aspects of their culture right here in Chase. And you can see in that top right, that's our Lisa Ryan, our Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, who led the development of this very successful event. And finally, here we are at the Eclipse. We had planned an admitted student day, which happened to be on the day of eclipse before we knew that the whole world was coming to Vermont. But it was still a very successful event, and even though there were some complications with some of the people traveling to Vermont, I'm looking at our Dean of Admissions right now, it was really rewarding to see everyone come to Vermont to really celebrate nature. And we think that our prospective students that were there that day really felt that as well. So we probably won't do that again whenever the next eclipse is, but here's a fun picture from the event. So that's all I have for today. Happy to answer your questions, and I'm turning things over to Dave, I believe.
If my microphone works, I think it's on. So this is a good time to ask any questions, but thank you very much, Dean Beth McCormick, Dean Dan Bromberg, and President Rod Smola for your comments and insights and information. So they're here. They'll take your questions. If anyone has questions, Rich Levitt, who's on the other side of the room, has one of these, and anyone who wants to ask a question, we're more than happy to let you speak into a microphone. So.
Please don't roll your eyebrows. I know you're going to roll your eyeballs at me, but the question I have for both of the deans, and probably President Smola too, is could you please tell me how you're going to, especially after many of us watched that horror show the other night, could you please tell me how you're going to incorporate leadership and ethics into the curriculum, especially the curriculum changes that we've just heard about for both the graduate school and the law school?
You want to start? Sure. So from the grad school side, we already have a course, community advocacy and leadership, that all of our students are in the MPP program will be required to take. And there are kind of two answers to that. The second answer really is that both of these things are incorporated across the curriculum. So part of the NASPA standards that I mentioned earlier, ethics need to be embedded in your courses across the curriculum. This is not something that we would say is a standalone course, right? Ethics are embedded in everything that our students are doing and every way that they're learning. So something as straightforward as a research course in which we are going to learn the ethics of doing appropriate research, to a strategic communication course where what is the information you're sharing, how are you sharing that, and how are you doing that in an ethical way? So I really do see both of those, leadership and ethics, as being embedded across the curriculum in all of our offerings.
From the JD side, we have a professional responsibility course that's a standalone course, but I also agree that these concepts are embedded throughout our curriculum, and in particular in our experiential program. So all of our residential students take at least 6 credits of experiential live client work, either through clinics or through our externship program, and these concepts are reinforced with live clients under the supervision of our faculty on a daily basis in those programs.
Thank you for that question, because I was, Torrin and I, class of '09, were just talking about the fact that the AI course without an ethics of AI course would be a mistake, because you can learn ChatGPT in an afternoon by yourself, but you can lose your career if you cite a bunch of cases that came from ChatGPT because you haven't thought about the ethics of it. So really feel like anything you're bringing, plus all of the work needs more ethicists. Like, just frankly, the law is behind every other social discipline at being able to give people skills to leave the work or to apply it in real life. So the extension of the clinics has to be thinking about what those roles are. I'm looking for information on student life. Just walking through yesterday, it feels very anesthetized in here, clean, if you will, in a way that I'm sure is fine, but I'm trying to figure out where the students are. And it's not just because we're here when they're not, but it just feels a lot like one of the core reasons why I'm still connected in 15 years is because I talk to 10 of my classmates every day on a thread, right? That met here. And so just curious about the inputs for developing a social network, because that's actually what you're paying for. Like, I came here to have 300 people I could call to learn about environment, and I call them regularly, which is why I know a lot of stuff about what I need to know separate from what I got here. So just wondering about what's being done to nurture those threads so people are together, and how are alumni being weaved into all of these plans, because we know some stuff and are more likely to help folks, and I don't see enough. It feels a lot like we have to come here, which feels like a misstep relative to the growth of the school and the length of the program. So curious to get your thoughts on those things.
I don't think you see students here today or yesterday because we're closed next week and there are no classes on Friday in the summer. However, I do think the social network of the residential students and the online hybrid JD students is as robust as it's ever been. As I said, I've been here for about 14 years and I have not seen any change. Instead, I feel like our students are involved in everything, maybe too many things actually. Student events are multiple student events each day. We have a club or a group for every aspect. I think our students are, as they always have been, incredibly supportive of one another for the most part, incredibly engaged in their legal education, and involved in the world. So I do think the student network is quite strong. I agree there are probably missed opportunities for student-alumni connection. I know we do have a mentorship program and we do have some alumni interviewing programs, but I'm sure perhaps the alumni office can give an update on other ways that we have considered or are considering.
Sure, happy to. And I think, Rod, you've been out and meeting with alumni on a regular basis, so maybe you've got a couple comments before I weigh in.
Well, this is the 12th school that I've taught at, and there's never been a school with more student life than here. I think it's because there's nothing else to do here. I'm serious. I mean, you go to there's a lot more to do in Philadelphia or Denver or Chicago than there is here, and it drives me crazy. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 or 5 events every single day during the year. It's a very, very vibrant student body, in my view. Now, the second question is really interesting. Everywhere I've been at, the problem has been, how do we get our current students to connect with alumni and network with them? And it tends to be easier when all the students come from one place. So when I taught at Georgia, almost all the students said we're going to work in Georgia. When I taught in Chicago, all the kids were from Chicago. But it's so thin. We have 3 or 4 students from Denver, 3 or 4 students from LA, 3 or 4 students from Texas, and then we have alumni sort of spread. And the mechanism isn't easy, but I think it's a great idea. And what I know being on the road is that you all are delighted to counsel a student, talk to a student, help somebody find a job, which is usually the biggest thing they're worried about. And I think one of the tricks, which we're getting better at, and then I'll let Dave talk about it, we just saw this in Denver, is we had an alumni event in Denver. I was giving a talk on the Constitution, and we had maybe 15 people from Colorado that were alumni, and then 3 or 4 people, a couple that were interning, a couple that were thinking of coming here, somebody that just graduated. And the more we can kind of get those mixers going like that, then people are more willing to do it. I said I didn't want to engage in generational stereotypes. And I'm not even sure this is a stereotype. Our students are a little shy. I mean, for them to call somebody working in DC at an agency, it takes a little bit of a oomph for them to get over the shyness hump to do that, I think. At least some of our students are that way. I'll let you comment, Dave.
Sure. And for those who don't know me, I didn't introduce myself earlier, but I'm Dave Salone. I'm Vice President for Alumni Relations and Development here. And the other gentleman with the microphone is Rich Levitt, who's class of 9900 AD MSEL, who we hired recently, 6 months-ish, 7 months ago. So we've got a couple of alumni in the alumni office, which is wonderful because we've been through the experience. We understand and know that to relate and interrelate with students is very important. And that's one thing that I encourage our entire staff to do, is to get on campus, get in the cafe, integrate with student groups. So more of that is beginning to happen, which is very important from a student life perspective. But what I see is exactly what Rod articulated, is there's more stuff going on campus, and we are doing more in terms of having alumni student events in Burlington and Montpelier here on campus. In White River Junction, we've done that over the past academic year. So that will continue to grow, and certainly nationally, as our president gets around and I get around and our staff make visits to various areas, we are working with career services, we're working with our admissions office to bring prospective students into those events. So more and more we're trying to focus on outreach and connection and sort of helping people get to know one another. So lots of that is going on. And then there's the online environment, the virtual environment. So we're doing more. We're ramping up the SWAN lifelong learning programs online. We've got a LinkedIn alumni page that we're growing. It's up to about 2,100 alumni on there now, encouraging students and alumni to get on there so that it's not limited just to alumni, but students as well can get on there. At least second years and third years. We haven't invited the first years yet, but so they're busy, right? They don't necessarily need to be focused on a job search, but so these are some of the things that we're doing, both virtually, also in person. So and more's coming.
I'll just add one more quick thing. I think the mentorship days are a really cool opportunity. Monica Collins is here, who's both an alum and in career services, and has been working closely with alum to pair them with, graduate students, law students. This is mainly on the graduate side, all virtual. Spend an hour with an alum, learn about what they're doing, and I think ramping more of that up and getting more people engaged in that is, wonderful, and we'd love to.
What I'm flagging is just that we've been out for 15 years, so I'm not asking about what you guys are doing right now. I'm just saying that I think it's a part of professional development. And if they're going to have a third year, which people are dispensing with, it should make you able to go outside of the school. And I'm like, going to 15 years of these things in DC, that's not it. Like, I actually think if you want folks to cross, and like that's what leaves. It takes you, someone told me when I was graduating that it takes 5 years for you to realize everything that you've learned. In between then, you have to talk to other people who will help you. And I really think it would be really important in the last 6 months for the students to be making as many contacts with the people they will land with where they think they're going as a part of their eligibility for graduating, or just the same way they have professional development and ethics. If you don't have any social skills, you can be standing next to people who could help you, and they won't help you because they don't know why they should know you. So I just wondering if that would be a part of a push, especially because for our year, people feel untouched, so they don't feel familial. Like they feel like they walked out of school and no one said anything to them, and so then they don't respond when the school asks them for things. So I actually just think it's mutually reinforcing to make this a part of the way that the work is happening and a mark of success for the students, just like the bar passage.
That's great. Thank you.
And we have a couple of members of our alumni association here who would like to weigh in on this.
Hey, I'm Sarah Mason. Tamara, how's it going? And Liz, we just wanted to chime in response and shout out that we actually have a really kick-ass alumni association board of directors. I see Jackie over there, Helen. We have regional groups run by some really cool people. And we're actually having the Alumni Association's open meeting at the barbecue today, and this is exactly the kind of feedback that we're looking for, because as on the board, we're always trying to figure out how to, it's great to engage current students who are looking for jobs, but some of us have been out for 16 years and maybe want a new job and would also like to, which by the way, if you're hiring in DC, come find me. But so this is the kind of feedback that we're looking for, and we're always trying to figure out how to get people more engaged. That it isn't just asking for money, which obviously we need and everyone should give. You're welcome, Rob. But everyone in this room, you guys you're all clearly dedicated alumni, and you're the kind of people we need to be part of the Alumni Association, to join those regional groups. Come find us at lunch at the barbecue to give us these ideas of how we can reach your classes better. And I'm going to let Liz talk to you.
I'm Liz Lucenti from 07 and do the Minnesota Regional Group. So there's a lot going on with the new graduates that we are just starting to work with the Career Services and Alumni Office to get incoming graduates into where could I go after I graduate? Could I go to the Minnesota Regional Group? Am I going to move to Colorado? Are there people there already? And give the feelers out early, which I think is going to keep that rapport and connection. And then there's also in the works, hopefully, some more hybrid and virtual ones so that everybody can convene at celebration moments. So, yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Stacy Shelton. I graduated in 2016, and President Smalley, you made some comments that that reminded me of my last year here. So I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I thought I was liberal. I came here and I realized, oh my God, I'm not really that liberal. And because I was skewed, and there was a Federalist Society here, and that had started, and I didn't think they were very welcomed. And not that I would join the Federalist Society, but I thought, my gosh, this is an institute of higher learning. We're in a law school. This kind of dialogue should be open and welcome. And if we can't talk to each other here, where in the world are we going to be able to talk to each other? And there was, so there were some social things happening that I didn't feel comfortable with. And I didn't see the school at the time really addressing it. And I'm not sure how you can, but how do you, to make people that are politically divergent, how do you make them feel comfortable in this space? Because it is known as a fairly left leaning institution.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and I think it's a struggle. And I say to our faculty, you've got to respect the academic freedom of others and model the ability to talk to people that are from a different ideological perspective. I think a lot of our faculty members try to model that when we have discussions in class. I teach constitutional law, several constitutional law classes here where we deal with all these culture war and woke war issues, and I try to encourage respectful dialogue across lines. But I think it's a national problem, and I think it's a problem here. If you have an identity as a very progressive place, would this be a place where someone who wants to study environmental law but has conservative instincts about politics and the economy feels welcome or feels persecuted? And so I think you make a very important insight. I frequently speak at Federalist Society conferences, and I've had friends who were at the founding of the Federalist Society that are my lifelong, colleagues from around the country. And it's important to have those dialogues and have those discussions, and it's important for people to understand, if you heard what I said, there's no hope for the country if we're hopelessly polarized. And I suspect it will pretty much always be the case that people with conservative instincts are a very distinct minority here. This isn't the George Mason, law school. But we would be impoverished if there weren't those voices on the faculty and in the student body. And we would be impoverished if we didn't have the ability to have civilized dialogue among them. But I really appreciate your question. I couldn't agree more.
I should add that the Federalist Society is coming back this year. It was approved at the last SBA meeting in the spring, so we will have a Federalist Society on campus after a long break.
And I'll add one more thing. I also think it's part of the curriculum that we're developing, right? So, one of the areas that I didn't speak about was the idea of community resilience. And I think that's a real opportunity for us. I think both from a restorative justice perspective, from an environmental justice perspective, from an environmental resilience perspective, and community resilience is needed everywhere, right? These are not political issues. These are economic development issues. These are policy issues. And I don't only think about urban centers as needing community revitalization, right? This is not what we're talking about. We're also talking about Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which lost a lot of jobs with globalization, right? And what does that community look like? We're talking about environmental issues that come to communities regardless of where they are and what they look like. So how do we build that strength and that resilience regardless of what politics you support? Everyone needs that. So I actually see positioning our curriculum in a way that is effective for all communities.
And we have a question from the back of the room here, but I'll mention that students in our South Royalton Legal Clinic are exposed to people from all walks of life. I mean, we've got veterans programs that are going there, family and child law programs. So that kind of exposure is, I guess, apolitical, but it's broad spectrum, and they're learning from the people who they have as clients, and so I think that's a powerful piece of their education as well. But we have a question here.
Yeah, thank you. David Royer, class of 1994. I'd like to return to the topic of money. Could you say a few words about where VLGS stands on tuition and affordability and access to deserving students, especially from a DEI perspective?
Sure, I'll do that. So we have a gross budget of about $35 million a year. We give back in financial aid about $14 million a year. In higher education, there's a term of art called the discount rate, which is how much you return back in financial aid. And if anything, our discount rate is too high. That is to say, we're too generous. It's like high cholesterol. You can go bankrupt if it's too high. But it's reasonable now. We're fortunate to have a surprisingly diverse student body for a rural, almost entirely white state in a tiny little village in New England. It's an extraordinarily diverse student body, and I mean diversity as measured in many, many different ways. Race, ethnicity, gender identity, a lot of different ways, sexuality. And those groups are robust here. They have strong voices, and the interactions, sometimes positive, sometimes adversarial, or at least where there's some tensions, are there. The school had operated in a deficit position for almost all of the last decade. The budget for the coming fiscal year is projected to be a modest surplus for the first time in 10 years. And then for the outlying years, multi-million-dollar surpluses, which will partly bank to give us a cushion and partly invest in the kinds of things you heard me talking about. Access is, of course, huge, and it's one of the biggest points of dialogue in higher education. It's a point on which I think there will be major moves at the federal level, no matter who was elected president in coming years, as both Democrats and Republicans focus on this. So we'll be under scrutiny for that. But I think I didn't give a short answer, but I'll try to give a short end. I think the bottom line is we put a remarkable amount of our resources into being accessible, and the most we possibly can, and still be viable.
Hi there. My name is Lou Helmuth. I'm from the class of 1984, and I'm here to shout out the efforts of the Vermont Law School, Vermont Law and Graduate School Board of Trustees for the incredible strategic plan that has led us to this day. Dean McCormick, you and I have never met. I've been watching you. And thank you for taking the helm when you did during a crazy storm for Vermont Law School. Like, incredible. Dean Smola, you and I have never met. I now live in Braintree, Vermont, just, 20 miles northwest of here or something like that. I spent 28 years in San Francisco. I just retired from 15 years with Our Children's Trust, a major nonprofit that leads climate litigation on behalf of children. And I moved back to Vermont. And I have a neighbor whose name is Shirley Hook. Her husband is Doug Bent. They're just simple Vermont farmers, who live, and I know them. I've known them for 10 years. And they're like, hey, we were just talking with the new dean, and he's going to help me out. I'm like, I didn't meet the new dean, but this guy is in Braintree Hill, up at their farm. You've been to their farm. So this man from Georgia and wherever else you're from, thank you for integrating with the external community as you have. And I'll tell you the story. I'm not going to do it publicly, but I'll tell you the story about what this man did for my neighbors. It's incredible, and they're still operating from the juices that you provided. Dean Bromberg, is it?
Got it.
I don't have a lot to say to you other than thank you for your tremendous efforts. But I will say to the rest of you, I was on the Dean Search Committee that led to the selection, when I was a student, that led to the selection of a guy by the name of Jonathan Chase. Oh, Jonathan B. Chase. Some of you remember Jonathan. This guy looks just like him. Has anyone ever said that to you?
Not yet.
I think we gotta find a picture of Jonathan. Look at that. That's pretty incredible to me. And I'm sorry, everybody, a lot of people in this room know me. I talk a little bit, but I hope I make a couple of nice points in addition to commending some really tremendous work. But so I live in Braintree now. I've always retained my foothold in Vermont, despite living in San Francisco for 28 years. And I've always understood, despite my love for Vermont Law School, I became a little disaffected over the last several years. I was really involved under prior decanal leadership, and I became a little disaffected. I have something on my desktop that says letter to Dean McCormick that I never sent for whatever reason. But I've always been concerned about the impact that Vermont Law School has, not only on all of us who come here and will come here into the future, but the impact on Central Vermont. And what you all have done to build this place into what it is and what your vision is wonderful. I spent 15 years also as the assistant dean for professional development at an independent law school, California Western School of Law. So I have a little bit of a sense of the challenges of what you're doing. It's remarkable. And I feel like this place is on some kind of footing that it hasn't been on in a long time. When you're talking about 10 years of deficits, 2 years of projected surpluses, congratulations, thank you from an alumnus from 1984.
Thank you, Lou.
Dave, I just...
Comments. Go ahead, Rod.
So a quick comment. Your neighbors, Shirley Hook and Doug Bent, are two of the Abenaki tribal leaders of one of the 4 tribal tribes recognized by the state of Vermont. And since I now know the way to Braintree, which ain't easy to get to, it sounds like I should pay a fundraising call on you. I'd be very happy to do that.
I might join them. We have one more question from the back of the room. I think we'll make this our last question so that we can get everybody off to eat. So, if you'd introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Soraya Williams, class of 2019 JD. And to the topic of fundraising, I'm curious, and I think it would be helpful for us to have some insight into your approach to fundraising. I know it's a big part of your job, President Smola. And so I'm just curious, like when you're out and about, what do you think about when you're trying to get people to open up their wallets? And what kind of stories you tell? How do you get them engaged? How do you get them excited about what VGLS has to offer?
Sure, and I'll try to be relatively brief. I think the story that you hear from me on the road is very similar to the remarks you heard from me at the beginning, and talking to people about what we're doing now and how important we are, and the kinds of things that you heard Dan and Beth talk about, I'll fill people in on. Our fundraising effort really has sort of 2 pieces to it. There's the annual giving effort to get our alumni to write us checks, and that's largely done now through online communications that you get and through events in cities around the country in which you try to gather people and talk to them in groups. We're also in the early stages of our 50th anniversary campaign, and the goal is to raise $20 million. So far we have $12.8 million, and the bulk of that comes from people that have the capacity to give major gifts, which are $25,000 gifts, $50,000 gifts, $100,000 gifts, $250,000 gifts, $2.5 million gifts. And these tend to be people that one either has to meet many, many times, cultivate over time. Sometimes it's a person with individual capacity. Sometimes it's a person that has a family foundation or is connected to some foundation that can be helpful. And that is a kind of relentless on-the-road meeting, cultivating, talking, having dialogue. We were able to get a $2.5 million gift from someone who just lives right down the road in Sharon, not connected to the school, except that person has historically given $20,000, $30,000 a year to the school, but gave us $2.5 million to name the School for the Environment. We have a $10 million proposal outstanding in front of a donor right now. We have multiple ones in these $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 ranges. And it's just sticking with it, going. But I think to the extent you want to know what the message is really what you've heard. The message is what you've heard from me. The message is what you've heard from the other folks here. And that resonates with a lot of people. And building a culture in which people realize it's critical to the country, critical to the world, that this place be here and thrive and get better and be more accessible to students is what we're about. And people like Dave and his staff, but everybody that works here, and many of you are instrumental in that. And so with that, Let's go eat.
We have one more comment, but I also want to add, since the question is a wonderful question because I'm the development VP and I love questions like this. You may not think a $25 gift or a $100 gift or a $250 gift matters that much in the whole scheme of the size of the budget here, but it does, because when we approach major donors or foundation donors and we're able to say our alumni participation rate is X much higher than it was last year or the year before that as a percentage, it makes a difference. It's a leveraging tool that they look at, and that determines the health of the school from their perspective on one metric, one data point. It's an important one. So I would say, if you can't make the $100,000 gift or the $2.5 million gift, but you can make the $25 gift or somewhere in between, please do. And please do by tomorrow at midnight, because that's the end of our fiscal year. But Brenda Tate has just a comment on fundraising.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brenda Tate, and I'm from the class of 2005. And while we're talking about money, I just want to say, I want to thank Judge Browling. She taught me how to give $1,000 a year back to the law school. Now, I didn't graduate #1 in my class. I'm not working at some big law firm in Washington, D.C., pulling down 6 figures. You're talking to someone who knows what it's like to live on poverty's road and not have anything, but will make a sacrifice to give money back to this law school willingly. So I meet Judge Browling. So she's sitting at the table. So she tells us how to save, what is it, $87? $83.33 a month. And I was like, oh, I could do that. I mean, that's coffee, soda, McDonald's, here and there. So that's what I started doing. And what year? We're talking 2018. Now, if I can do that, and like I said, I'm not some big fancy person like driving a BMW, and Professor Firestone told us about doing some good in the world, like giving back to Vermont Law School instead of buying BMWs. I will not buy a BMW. I give my money back to Vermont Law School.
Thank you, Brenda. And this is the first time I've met Brenda, so she was not a plant by the development office, I can tell you that. So before we send you off to lunch, which will be in about 6 or 7 minutes' time, the backyard barbecue starts behind Debevoise Hall, and it's with the Alumni Association. So they're there, and you can interact with them. Sort of a fun little thing to do here at the end of the State of the School address is to find out who is the longest distance traveled person here, who's an alum, and they will get a special VLGS mug. We've got, where are you from? Scotland. We got Scotland. Helen. Okay, yeah, I think you win. Thank you for making the long distance trip. And then we also have another one for the person from the earliest class, and I hope there aren't multiples because I've only got one more. 79. Anyone earlier than 79? Last year we had a 76. Not older. Okay, Jackie, you're it. 79, earliest class. Glad you're here, and thank you, deans.
7 hours. 7 hours from Boston.
7 hours from Boston. Oh, that's the same as San Francisco. I got a bag for you. The bag that the prizes came in. Thank you all very much. We're off to the lawn behind Debevoise Hall. Thanks so much, deans and president.
Yeah.